पहिलाच असेल ना माझा उद्याचा सोमवारचा.
और 2 नंबर मार तो ज्वाइन થઈ ગયું
अभी रहा तो फिर मैं कॉल कर दूंगी।
Hello, Dr. Rashmi, madam.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we will start at 3 o'clock. Okay.
Yes, sir.
3. Okay. Sir has joined. Okay.
Okay. Correct.
Chat on.
எனக்கு ஒன்றும் திறக்கிறோம் திறப்போம் மீட்டிங் வேற இருக்கு நீ டிசைட் பண்ணீங்க அதான் தம்பியே சொல்றாங்க பாருங்க அப்படிங்கிற எல்லாம் என்னத்துக்கு
Hello. Hello, Professor Murugan sir. Good afternoon.
Hello. ती मीटिंग झाली झाली ना
वैष्णव माहिती का मीटिंग नाही रे काही इंटरनॅशनल कॉन्फरन्स आहे.
Hello, Gurnale. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. Professor Balaji, sir. Good
मी
afternoon.
सांगितलं टाकतो.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Murugan. Hello, Dr. Murugan.
Good afternoon, Professor Gurnale and
Sir,
Swami
good
Madhav.
afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Hello, Dr. Murugan. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, you all. Good afternoon from Nepal. Namaste.
Yes, sir.
sir.
Yes, yes, sir. Sir, welcome, sir. Welcome. Hello, Rashmi madam. Hello.
So my voice is coming clearly.
Yes, yes. It is. Voice is clear. We can start now. Okay, start now.
Okay, sir. Namaste and a very good afternoon to one and all present here. This is Rashmi Dubey and I welcome you all on the second day international webinar on chemistry education, IWCE 2021, which is organized by Association of Chemistry Teacher Mumbai in collaboration with Kamla Nehru Mahavidyaya Nagpur and Government Madhav Science PG College Ujjain. Here we are on the second day of this two-day international webinar on chemistry education. Good afternoon all. First, I pay my homage to late Shri Govindraoji Vanjari sir, founder president of Amar Seva Mandal. I also pay my heartfelt gratitude to Honorable Dr. Suhasini Vanjari ma'am, president Amar Seva Mandal. Honorable Advocate Abhijit Vanjari sir, MLC and Secretary, Amar Seva Mandal. Honorable Dr. Smita Vanjari ma'am, Treasurer, Amar Seva Mandal, for their continuous support and guidance to us. I heartily welcome our today's eminent speaker who join us from different walks of life to share their knowledge and vast experience with us. Dr. B.S. Balaji, Associate Professor, School of Biotechnology, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi, and Professor S. Murugan, former HOD, ST Hindu College, Nagarkoli. Welcome you, sir. I also welcome all the dignitaries, faculties, research scholars, and participants who joined this session from the different regions. I welcome all of you. A diverse mix of voice, it leads to better discussion decision, and outcome for everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, without wasting time, let us move towards our technical session for today's webinar. But before that, I got an opportunity to introduce Dr. B.S. Balaji sir. Dr. Balaji is working as Associate Professor at School of Biotechnology, Jawaharlal Nehru University. His area of specialization includes green chemistry, synthetic chemistry, drug development, nanochemistry, teaching and learning methodologies. He is the recipient of ACT Professor P.R. Singh Award for Outstanding Contribution to Chemistry Education 2021. Dr. Balaji developed the first e-learning course at JNU for JNU students. Additionally, he had developed and is successfully running a 15-week MOOC in Swayam platform with more than 14,000 enrolled participants. He had initiated a national campaign in collaboration with IIT Madras to create an e-learning content for Swayam Prabha TV channels project during COVID-19 forced lockdown. He had coordinated the creation of more than 700 hours of e-learning content. As a societal commitment, he had developed a 3D print lock and key barrel model to teach students basic concepts and to create interest among blind and low vision students. Dr. Balaji served as subject matter expert, external academic consultant to E-Vidya Bharati Arogya Bharati project of Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India.
मैडम आपका आवाज म्यूट हो गया. रश्मि मैडम.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. He is a subject matter expert and regular resource person for conducting faculty development program, quality improvement program, workshop on MOOC, and service training for PGT chemistry. In past 5 years, he had conducted over 110 sessions and had given training to around 5,000 faculty members from all over the country. He is a life member of Association of Chemistry Teachers and the Peptide Society of India. For creating awareness among the students regarding MOOC, he had published few popular articles about MOOC and Swayam in leading newspapers like the Hindu and Deccan Herald. He earned his PhD in organic chemistry from National Chemical Laboratory, Pune, and he got his MBA from Anna University with technology management as specialization. He had published more than many research papers and hold 4 Indian patents. The research contribution for his laboratory had appeared in few journal cover pages and appeared in local print and electronic media also. Prior to joining Jawaharlal Nehru University, he had a senior manager in various chemical and drug manufacturing companies. So today we have such a versatile personality with us, and sir, we are eagerly waiting to hear you. So I request you to start your session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rashmi madam, for an elaborate introduction. I really have less to talk now because you have already covered everything which I'm going to cover in this particular session. So, of course, I think I can finish my session quickly within 10 minutes. Thank you for a nice and elaborate introduction about me. And I also thank the Kamla Nehru College and Ujjain College for organizing this event with the Association of Chemistry Teachers And I really thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to interact and share some of the things what we have been doing it for increasing the student engagement. And of course, I'm very happy to tell two things. One is like when we are students, we are actually nervous to talk in front of our teachers. So that is what we have actually seen happening in many of the places. And I'm actually in that place today exactly right now. The reason is the next eminent speaker, Professor Murugan, is actually my HOD in the college where I did my master's. So during our college days, I was talking in front of him during the presentations. Today, I'm just going to talk before him in the presentation. So it is like icing on the cake for me to present in front of my teacher that what are the work we are doing so far. And of course, I have to also tell one more thing. For most of the online courses which I am developing, he is one of the academic expert who actually goes through the materials what I make. And he gives very, very valuable suggestions because he had more than 3 decades of teaching to UG and PG students, especially chemistry. And of course, he is also very active in spreading the awareness like green chemistry principles. One of the things like in the next session, you are actually going to see that like micro scale practicals. So that is a very, very important thing for especially the college and the school chemistry teachers for the practicals. And he will be elaborately talking about that. And he is doing this even after his retirement. So is his commitment towards teaching and learning process. And I'm actually blessed to be his student presenting just before him. And without taking much time, I just want to go into the presentation today. Is my screen visible?
No, sir.
Okay, yes. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So in today's discussion, we are going to talk about student engagement. Student engagement as a teacher, we are actually facing this challenge during the normal period. It is to some extent it was there, but in the online mode, we are having lots of issues because students are not actually engaged in the classroom teaching learning activities. So there are a few things like intrinsic and extrinsic factor. That means within the student, what are the problems, and outside the student, what are the problems, and due to which the students are not actually actively engaged in the teaching learning process. So we are going to look at some of the issues, and we are actually going to look at some solutions, how we can actually better make the students engage. So the overall presentation is going to go like this. The 3 questions we are going to ask today is, does integrating technology increases student engagement? This is one question. The second one is, does more engagement leads to more learning? Because as a teacher, we want the student to learn more. And the next question is, of course, student engagement requires lots of effort from the teacher side. So that means student engagement versus teacher stress. What is the actual trade-off? So these are all the 3 major questions we are going to address in this particular session. So the flow of presentation is going to be, we are going to have a holistic view about the student engagement and the specific approaches to increasing the student engagement. So this is what we are going to see today. As Madam had actually mentioned earlier, this is the organic chemistry course, the massive open online course, which we are running in the Swayam platform. This project was sponsored by UGC and Ministry of Human Resource Development back then, and currently Ministry of Education now. This is a PG level course. It is a 4-credit course we are offering online, which has 15 weeks duration and 40 modules. This is mainly for the MSc first year students, and the enrollment for this course is pretty high. And in fact, we can say that this is one of the top rated course in the Swayam platform for the organic chemistry students. You can look at the number of student enrollment. From this, you can actually see a lot of people are interested in joining that. In this current session also, we started in July 2019. Then we offered the same course in 2020, August 2020 and January, both the sessions we offered because lots of students are interested. And currently we have around 1850 students who are registered for this course, and the course link is given here. This is mainly for the master students, and even many of the college teachers can actually get some of the information how better we can keep engaged the students. So in this presentation, many of the examples what I'm going to give are actually taken from this course. So you can see that also. We have actually integrated two major things to improve the student engagement. The first one is the augmented reality software we introduced for the student to actually learn stereochemistry in a much better way, because when we talk about stereochemistry, visualization is very, very crucial. And in the classroom, we can actually use physical models like 3D models and show the students. But in an online mode, that is a great challenge because we cannot show the student. So we thought how we can actually engage the students. Then augmented reality came to our rescue. So we took augmented reality and we have created a software with the help of IIT Bombay, and we have introduced that to teach stereochemistry to the students, and it had received a very positive feedback from many of the students. And the second innovative things what we have introduced in the online class is the crossword puzzle. So here is the couple of pictures. So this is how the augmented reality actually works. So this is a floor in my house. And this picture, if you look at, we see the water molecule. Here we have the borane molecule. Here we have the erythrochlorobutanol molecule. So all these molecules actually appear in the mobile phone, because this augmented software, reality software is a Android version. So any student who wanted to know about this, they can actually install this software on their mobile phone, and they can actually visually see these molecules in the computer, in the monitor of the mobile phone. And we have the rotation X, rotation Y, and rotation Z axis. So that means student can actually, with the help of the finger, because these all the mobile phones, the smartphones are touchscreen enabled ones, so they can actually rotate the molecule. You can see the 3 axes here. So when we talk about reflection, symmetry, operations, and elements, and also zooming in, zooming out, all those things are integrated in this particular software for the student to actually interact with the molecules directly, because this is how we can actually make them learn a little bit more in the online mode. So the next one is the crossword puzzle. So this is how we give the crossword puzzle. There is a little bit difference between filling the blanks, because if you look at the questions here, it is very similar to the filling the blanks. But filling the blanks, you can actually choose some similar answers. But in the crossword puzzle, you have to actually look at the exact answers. And the questions, how we frame is basically to know about a particular concept, how a student had learned. So that is what is the major focus of this one. So these are some of the activities through which the students' engagement we have actually increased. And as Madam had pointed out, like we have also created the chemistry education, especially for the blind and the low vision students. We have created a Braille model, and this had appeared in the chemical education a couple of years ago. And here, the school children, they are unable to learn chemistry because chemistry requires visualization, and the chemistry also requires use of molecular formula and other things. So the tactile is the only way by which a student, especially the blind and low vision student, interact with the real world. So we have introduced the letters and the Braille characters at the top, because there are dots, raised dots, that is what is called the Braille writing. And using a 3D printing, we have integrated the chemistry letters and the Braille in the same piece. So this is what we call as a lock and key model piece. And here, this is a nitrate ion. So here, of course, this is a little bit dark, so you cannot see that color. The number 3 is here, and the charge minus is here. Here we have the Fe3O4 molecule, Fe, and here you see the subscript. And these kind of things we have created to teach chemistry to the school children, especially because they have to actually interact with the subject, and they cannot look at what we have written on the board. So to increase their engagement, we have actually introduced this model, and this received a very good response from various blind and low vision students. And continuing with that, what we did was like, okay, we started with the teaching of a simple basic equation, but at a higher level, the student need to know about valency bonding and hybridization. So this work, we have continued it where we have actually introduced the bonding concept in this lock and key model itself. So here you see for single bond, we have only one slot given here. And for oxygen, two sides we have the slot. That means these two represent a single bond. And for another oxygen type, we have two slots on the same side. This represents a double bond. So for example, if you want to talk about alcohol molecule, so we use this oxygen molecule. And if you are going to talk about carbonyl compound, aldehydes, ketones, esters, other thing. So we have a C double bond O. So we use this type of oxygen molecule. So here the bonding concept also we are introducing so that the student learn, especially this is mainly for the blind and low vision students, and even for the normal student, we can actually use this as a fun model. So here you see some of the molecular structures we have created using this model. And we also introduced the sp3, sp2 and the sp hybridization in this kind of model, so that if we are going to talk about Lewis dot structures or maybe the hybridization at higher level, maybe 10th or 12th students who are actually blind and low vision, who cannot actually see the molecules, they can actually feel the molecule. Like, I mean, okay, sp3 hybridization means there are 4 slots. That means it is a tetrahedral one. Like that, they can actually imagine and they can actually work with that. And if it is an sp2, there are 2 bonds on one side. And if it is a sp carbon, then we have 3 bonds on one side and 1 bond on the other side. So we introduce both bonding and hybridization. So these are all some of the activities we have been doing to improve the student engagement towards teaching learning process. And of course, let us come to our presentation here. So learning is basically multiple steps are involved in that learning. So not having heard of it is not as good as having heard of it. So hearing is the first one, then followed by seeing it. Then the third step is knowing it. Then the last one is the practice. So that means a Confucian philosopher long back had said that first you have to hear it, then you see this, and then you know it, then only you practice it. Once you practice it, that is what actually called as a learning. So knowing it is not as good as putting it into practice. That means when we talk about learning, learning is not acquiring knowledge. Learning is basically a behavioral change. So that means by putting it into practice, we are going to make some change. So that is what is the learning. And of course, this is a very famous quote by Benjamin Franklin: tell me, I forgot; teach me, I remember; involve me, I learned. So the last step is mainly for the student, because the more and more we involve the student, that is where the engagement actually comes into the picture. And that is where the learning actually starts. So of course, Winston Churchill had put it in a very different way. I am always ready to learn, although I do not always like being taught. So this is precisely the thing most of the students actually have in their mind. But of course, they are polite enough to not to tell it openly to us. But we have to, as a teacher, we have to understand this. So what are the intrinsic factors, or as an organic chemist, I would like to put this as intramolecular forces. So what are the intramolecular forces which is responsible for the students not getting engaged very effectively? The first one is ability to communicate or collaborate. Then lack of self-discipline or interest, difficulty to overcome barriers. So this is one of the major problem I have seen. When we interact with the students from various parts of the country, the language is one of the major barrier, which actually is highly responsible for the disengagement by the students. Because if they are unable to follow the language in which you teach, they just switch off. See, this is like a transmitter is sending the signal, but the receiver is not receiving because the receiver is turned off. So that is what actually happens when we talk about the language. So we have to be multilingual. That's the reason if you look at the national education policy, they are actually trying to implement this particular aspect to increase the student engagement through learn from the mother tongue, that is the local language, and also bilingual or a multilingual approach they are talking about. So the main purpose is to increase the student engagement. So as a teacher, if you know that this is a problem, we have to address it very quickly. And other students' problems include fear of failure, prior negative experiences, and not willing to work hard or put efforts. So these are some of the that means intrinsic factors which affect the learning or the engagement by the students. And if you look at the extrinsic factors, first one is the student-teacher interaction, because this is the most crucial one, and followed by student-student interaction, student content interaction, and the level or the difficulty level of the course actually. Then lack of resources from the student side, because he may not be having a mobile phone or a device, or maybe the access to his poor network connectivity at his place. So these are some of the external factors, are the intramolecular forces, as we say, and lack of support mechanism, family and friends, and of course quality of the teacher. So these are some of the external factors on which the student doesn't have any control, but these may be responsible for his reduced engagement. So these are all the overall view we have seen, and we will now look at how to address all these things. The student engagement is basically classified into 3 major classes. This is a little bit theoretical aspect I'm just talking about, so that we have some basic understanding of what is student engagement. Then we will go into how to approach. Fredericks had nicely put this in a very nice way. There are 3 major categories. One is the emotional engagement. The second one is the behavioral engagement. The third one is basically the cognitive engagement. So these are all the 3 major categories into which the student engagement can be classified. And recently people had also talked about agentic engagement. So here some of the ways, like when we talk about emotional engagement, it is anxiety of the student, the attitude of the student, failure, fear, happiness, interest, all these are responsible for students' engagement into the teaching learning process. When we talk about behavioral, it may be the attention given by the students, or the concentration, or even sometimes the gender is also another major issue. And their participation or persistence or their peer relationship, these are affecting the student engagement. And when we talk about cognitive, it may be a strategic one or a thoughtful one, comprehension or visualizing. So as an organic chemist, I always focus on this particular aspect, the visualization, because most of the organic chemistry revolves around visualization of the molecules or atoms movement. So the cognitive load has to be reduced for the student to understand the topic. So that's where we have to focus more. And okay, how do we know whether the student is engaged or not engaged? The first one is listening to a lecture. So this happens most of the time. Reading a book, this also happens all the time, and watching a video. So these 3 things are actually happening. So as a teacher, we understand that, okay, this is how the students are actually interacting, but these are basically part of a passive learning, because they don't pay any attention to what is going on. They simply look at something, or they simply listen to something. That's it. They are watching something, but nothing goes into their mind. So how do we make this passive activity into a active role? So the first one is for the passive thing, like when they are listening. Can you please mute your mic so that there is less disturbances? Thank you. So passive thing, we can see like students are just listening to the lecture, but we can make them actively participate by asking them to repeat what we have said. Of course, some of these things looks like too childish, or okay, we are dealing with undergraduate or a postgraduate students. We should not be going to this level of, asking them do this mundane or a very simple or a very silly things. But unfortunately, unless we keep on doing these kind of small activities, the students' engagement is completely gone in most of the cases. So we have to pay more attention to that. And when they are writing the book, we have to actually ask them that, okay, you write a notes and show me the notes. That way, they will have to actually actively get involved. And when they watch the video, we just ask them, okay, you summarize and tell me what you have seen in that. So from the passive action, we are actually making them to be more active learners. So we have to do little bit extra work, or maybe we should ask the student to do little bit extra to make sure they move from the passive to the active mode. The first one is a direct instruction, which we are actually doing in the class. So the instruction followed by practice in the class, then a feedback. So these kind of circular mechanism we can apply in the class. So we teach for a few minutes in the class, and then we ask the student to do some practice, or maybe give some problems to solve them, or something. We have to do some additional activity than simply our instruction activity in the class. Then once they practice, or once they do this activity, then we give the feedback to the students. Okay, you performed okay, you did not do this well, there is some problem, you have to correct this. So those kind of feedbacks we can actually give to the students. So when we have this circular approach, in those kind of cases, what happens is, like, students, whether they like it or they don't like it, they are now forced to get into this learning mode. There are some teacher-centric approaches which we can follow, which all of the teacher know. So I just skip very quickly. One is the blackboard writing and using some props model to teach, or maybe using a board to teach. It's very good for a classroom. Using slide for teaching is mainly for conferences. And the major issue what we have is losing contact with the audience in the online mode. So these are some teacher-centric approaches. And when we talk about the student-centric approaches, we ask the student to read the book. Of course, all the teachers, we are doing that, provide some supplementary material, create awareness, internet forum. Again, reliability is one thing we can actually focus a little bit more, because Quora, many students will ask us some question in the Quora and they get a feedback or a reply from the Quora. But scientifically, these things may or may not be correct. So students need to know the reliability and the accuracy of the details. So that's the reason when we recommend you can search the forum, we also have to be very specific about the limitations of what are the issues. Stack Exchange is another area where they can ask lots of questions. So here in the Stack Exchange, most of the answers are given by scientific backing, and there will be some journal article reference which will be given for the good answers. So this is a much more reliable one for the student to follow rather than following the Quora. And this is some of the activities as Madam had already mentioned. So this is our activity with in collaboration with IIT Madras during the COVID-19 lockdown. We have actually created lots of e-learning contents. So this is one of the activity we have done to increase the reach of the students, because during the COVID-forced lockdown, students were not going to the colleges, and in many places, especially in rural India, there is a very poor network connectivity. So to reach those people, Swayamprabha TV channel is one thing where people can actually learn a lot of things. And this project was supported by IIT Madras, and we have actually created, as Madam had mentioned, we had created more than 700 hours of video for the students. And awareness is another thing, as I have mentioned in the previous one, how to create the awareness. I wrote a couple of articles in the newspaper. This is also another thing where I write regularly in the Consortium of Educational Communications newsletter. I regularly write to talk about what are the important approaches a teacher can take. And as a teacher, when we are going to give the presentation, as all of you know, we have to look at academic contents, flow of material, information paucity versus information overload, structure and relevancy to the level of students. So we all focus on this one. Why we have to focus on this one is actually this is the cause of disengagement. If there is any lacuna in any of these things, that actually leads to the disengagement by the students. A simple example I'll give you. Academic contents, when we talk about the misconception or the confusion which happens in the student's mind. The first one is the particle nature of the students. We talk about, especially in organic chemistry, we talk about electron as a 2 dot. So the students immediately thinks, okay, this is a physical object. So that is how it is actually moving. That's what it comes to his mind. But actually electron is a wave nature. It has both the duality. When we talk about duality, they get confused. Sir, you said it is a dot, that means it's a physical object. Now you are telling it is a wave. I'm confused. So these kind of things are possible. Another thing, bonding, when we talk about in VB theory, we mainly focus on the localized bonding. But when we go to MO theory, we talk about delocalized bonding. Then he gets confused. Sir, you say now the electrons are shared between two atoms in the valence bond theory, and immediately in the next class you say in the molecular bonding orbital we talk the electron is seen throughout the molecule. So there is a misconception or a confusion. Again, hybridization leads to geometry. This is the most major confusion or the misconception student has. Actually, to explain the geometry only, the hybridization was brought in. It is not the other way around. Tetrahedral shape of methane is not due to sp3 hybridization. So students say sp3 hybridization leads to tetrahedral geometry, but actually to explain the tetrahedral geometry of the carbon, people are using sp3 hybridization. So that exactly the opposite of understanding is also another problem student has. Then rabbit ear model for water. So this is the most important problem everybody has, because when we talk about water molecule, we are talking about the two lone pair of electrons. They are equivalent. So that is how we are teaching maybe in the school and maybe in the college and other thing. But unfortunately, when you look at the photoelectron spectroscopy, we have three types of electrons which are present. So the student get confused completely. Sir, you say these two electrons, that is the lone pair, are equivalent when we teach in the case of water's structure. But when they go into a little bit higher level, they say like, no, these two electrons or these two lone pair of electrons are not equivalent. They are different. So the student gets confused. And again, the next one is the pyridine versus pyrrole, because we say nitrogen has lone pair. So pyridine is basic in nature, whereas pyrrole is not basic in nature. Now the student will ask the question, sir, you say whenever there is a lone pair, it is going to be basic, but in pyrrole also we have a two electrons, that is the lone pair of electron is there, but it is not basic. Why? Then we have to tell him like, okay, that is whether the electron is in the p orbital or whether it is in the sp2 hybridized orbital. Like that, we have to go a little bit deep to explain. So superficially, when we talk about some of these things, that is what is the reason for confusion. And I just only talked about a simple example of bonding, because we are just talked about all the things related to bonding. Now, if you go into a little bit more of organic chemistry, we have so many topics where we have too much misconception and the confusion. So these are all the major problems the students starts disengaging with learning chemistry. So as a teacher, we have to focus on removing this misconception. Of course, organic chemistry is even worse, I'll tell. The major challenge is we have full of exceptions. We talk about Hoffman elimination reaction. Then immediately we talk about sites of elimination. In Hoffman elimination, you end up with the terminal alkene, and in the sites of elimination, you get the most stable or the internal olefin. So again, we have to explain to the students, depending on the conditions, we have to look at what is the product that will be formed. Or maybe we talk about Markovnikov and anti-Markovnikov addition. So organic chemistry itself is confusing the students more. So these are all the ways where the students easily gets disengaged when they start to learn chemistry. So as a teacher, our academic content should focus on removing all these misconceptions or confusions. And of course, next is the flow of material. When we talk about a reaction mechanism, we talk about the role of electronegativity. We say the most electronegative one is going to attack or, abstract to this proton, and this proton gets attached to this one. So like that, when we talk about the amide hydrolysis, we draw the structure, and this is very common and everybody knows. But now the student's problem is, sir, there is also another nitrogen, which is also having a lone pair of electron. Why this lone pair of electron is not going and attacking, and why you are talking about only this oxygen lone pair going and attacking? So this is a very obvious question that will come to the mind of the student. If it comes, that is where the engagement actually starts to show up. So that means students want to learn. So we have to now talk about what is the role of electronegativity. So what is the electronegativity of nitrogen? What is the electronegativity of oxygen? Then based on the differences, which one will go and attack? So when we teach the flow of material for the reaction mechanism, should cover all the steps in a very, very unique way or in a precise way. For example, what are the species involved and whether there is any stability issues. That means stability leads to lesser reactivity. That is what we say. Most stable product will be formed. But where is the stability? whether the stability is occurring before the transition state is reached or after the transition state is reached. Because whenever we talk about an equilibrium reaction, the reaction will proceed only in the direction where the stabilized species is existing. So that means whether it is before or after is very, very crucial in deciding. We cannot simply say stability leads to better product or stability leads to product formation. We can never say that. We have to specifically say whether the stability occurs before reaching the transition state or after reaching the transition state. If it reaches after reaching the transition state, then the reaction will proceed in the forward direction. So that means the product will be formed. So stability in some cases may also happen in such a way that the reaction will never proceed. So what is observed and what is predicted, we can talk about this a little bit more. For example, if I want to talk about a rearrangement to the students, so we talk about what are the flow of things in this particular presentation I am going to give. So how do we talk? First, I talk about no change of carbon skeleton. This is carbocation rearrangement I'm talking about. So we have two major classes. One is no change in carbon skeleton. Another one is change in the carbon skeleton. Then loss of groups. Then other electron deficient terminus. So when we talk about no change in electron configuration, we talk about 1,2 hydride shift. Then it is a primary to secondary or secondary to tertiary or even allylic one. And then in the carbon skeleton, we can talk about neopentyl, Wagner-Merwin, and penacol-penaclone rearrangement. And loss of group, we can talk about rearrangement. So the flow of material in the class should go in a very, very systematic way. We start with no change, then we go to the change in the carbon skeleton, then we talk about loss of group. So when we go in a very systematic way, the students' understanding will be much more better, and they will also get hooked up to the class. The next one is the information paucity. Here, what we talk about, ignorance is bliss. That is what we talk generally in normal terms. But when we talk about science, ignorance is never bliss, because ignorance leads to lots of problems. So what are all the problems? When we have scientific ignorance, that leads to a poor or wrong interpretation, because many times if we don't understand the things, how it happens, we actually give very wrong explanation. So that means we as a teacher, if we are not knowing many of the things or how the reaction actually proceeds, we ourselves will be giving wrong answer to the student. This is one way. The second way, if the student didn't understand because he thinks ignorance is bliss and he just wants to ignore it, then he will give very poor interpretation or give wrong answers. So in either way, whether it is from the teacher side or from the student side, ignorance is always a wrong thing. So we have to avoid it. And so the ignorance from the student side always leads to poor engagement, because he just want to ignore it. I don't want to know that. Okay, forget, sir. This is way above my head, so I just want to leave it. And he also leads to wild guesses, which is a very wrong thing. And ignorance may sometimes lead to getting ignored. Like the teacher's ignorance actually leads to the student get just ignore the teacher, because they will simply say, oh, the teacher doesn't teach properly, so just ignore him. So from the student side as well as from the teacher side, ignorance is a very, very wrong thing. So information paucity or not knowing something is a major cause for disengagement. And how we can, the other extreme is information overload, because whenever you go and search the internet, you are given with too many information. How do we actually be more careful in these things? So one is a micro learning we can actually use. So here we use a bite-sized approach, and this bite-sized approach or a micro learning actually helps the student to learn better way. What to include in the micro learning is basically one concept at a time. For example, I want to teach about a substitution reaction, addition, elimination, or anything, a single topic when I want to talk, especially rules related to nomenclature, RS notation, or even activation energy, I can talk as a micro learning, only one single topic. And we give only to provide the most essential information. And we can also do comparison, or we can also do self-evaluation at the end. But what to avoid means don't include complex topics in the micro learning. For example, total synthesis you want to say, or isomerism per se, because we have more than 6 or 8 different types of isomerism, that cannot be covered in micro learning. So in the micro learning, we teach one concept at a time. one simple example is given here. So I talk about corrosion. So in the corrosion, we just start our lesson with show some rusted nails or rusted building and start our session. And we give some information about what is corrosion and what are the causes of corrosion, or maybe why we have to worry about corrosion, like loss of lot of money, especially corrosion worldwide cost like $2.5 trillion. So that means it's a major cost. We have to address that. Like that, we can start our class. And in the class, what we can do is, see, this is a micro learning. In the micro learning, we are just making one single topic and we are going to tell the student. So we talk about the electrochemical process, what are the causes, and it gives the thermodynamic requirement and what are the prevention of corrosion. And then finally, we can also ask some question to the students like, okay, what are these type of corrosions, and write the mechanism for this corrosion or other things we can say. Of course, this structure, if the student completely understood, then they will say this is a boat. So this requires, this is due to wet corrosion, and this happens outside. So this is due to dry corrosion, and those kind of things they can say. So with that, we can conclude this small micro learning session for the student. This is one way of increasing the student engagement. Then mind map is another one where you can actually talk about how an amine can be prepared from various starting materials. In one single slide, you can actually show all these things to the student so that they exactly get that, okay, what are all the different starting materials by which an amine can be prepared. This can be given. Or we can also use infographics to teach a particular topic. Say, for example, from alcohol, what are the different compounds that can be prepared. So these are some of the ways which are examples in the micro learning. And when we talk about the structure, this is basically, we start with the observed fact. That means how a reaction actually proceeds, and talk about the factors that are involved. Then we move on to develop the theory or mechanism, then validate with evidences, and finally we provide application. So this is a well-structured approach of teaching a particular reaction. Say, for example, when we talk about writing, writing has two major areas. One is the creative literature, where show not, don't tell is an approach many people follow. Whereas in the technical writing, we always write explicit mention. So writing may be done by different type of people in different ways. So if you are not an English writer or maybe a story writer, there you can actually mention very briefly, and you can let the imagination of the reader connect the dots. But when we talk about the scientific learning, that means especially chemistry based learning, we have to explicitly mention each and everything, how the process actually takes place. Here is an example. So amine reacts with an activated ester to give an amide. So acid and amine gives amide. So this is a simple reaction. So how do we teach this particular topic means we can actually start with the discuss or provide some observed fact, and then we continue that with the mechanism. So how the reaction actually proceeds. So here is in the first step, acid in the presence of a base is converted to a anion, and we have this is the carbodiamide is used in this particular reaction. So in the acidic condition, the proton which is lost from the acid is picked up by this DCC or similar carbodiamides, and then we get a carbocation. So we have an anion, we have a cation. So how the reaction actually works, we can tell about that. And then we can also talk about the intermediate that are involved in this particular reaction. That means we have to validate the evidences. So this acyl urea, how it is formed. We can also talk about the O-acyl urea, and this can be isolated and confirmed that the reaction proceeds through this particular intermediate. And then we finally conclude the reaction with the mechanism. So how it actually leads to the final product. That means the application, the conversion of an amine to an amide, how it can be done. Like that, we can actually go through that simple mechanism. So this is what is called a structured approach. And as a teacher, we teach different types of students, and their level of knowledge or understanding is quite different. In the +2 level, they talk more about the stoichiometry, and at the UG level, they talk about or focus on functional groups. At PG level, they talk about effect of structure and activity relationship. And at PhD level, they talk more about the thermodynamic parameters and other things. So this is a very basic understanding a student may have. and you are teaching, but how do I know whether the course I teach is actually relevant to the student or not? Whether I am teaching over or I am teaching less, how do I know? So the simple question is, we can take a feedback, and there are various types. One is a oral feedback, which we ask in the class. Hey, did you understand in the class? Most of the time, we don't even get any response. So this is one of the major problems. So to avoid that, we can also have a formal feedback, or even we can go with anonymous feedback. This does take some time, but it gives a much better insight. So that means your level can be understood, whether the students are agree, I mean, at the same level in which you are teaching, or they are at a lower level or at the higher level. You can actually take from this feedback. And once you take the feedback, what you have to do is you make the course correction. By that, you now modify your class, because this is how we can actually engage the students in a much better way. Otherwise, I come and teach and they don't follow, they follow, I don't care, like that the things are going on. Now I am asking the students, okay, you give me the feedback, I taught something, you understood, you did not understand, that is perfectly fine. What is the problem from your side? What is the problem from my side? Okay, just list out all these problems, and then let us address one by one. If it is your problem, you try to correct. If it is my problem, I will try to correct. So that is where we change the speed, we change the depth, we change the approach. As a teacher, we can do that. So by doing these kind of things, we can actually improve the students' engagement, and this can be done through a stepwise approach. So all the time we follow a very stepwise approach. Incremental progresses can only be made. Don't expect an overnight change in the entire thing. So slowly, we are pushing the student from the fluency level to the mastery level by incremental changes. So here are some of the ways by which the incremental changes can be made. One is like students first start with the read and listen. So they are basically passive nature. We ask them to write and ask them to explain something or tell something. So this is where we make them little bit active in that process. Then we ask them to explain or reflect on what you understood. So this is, we are taking them to the construction level. And then finally, we ask them to modify or debate. So we make them interact with other students as well. So these are all the very incremental steps by which we can actually make or increase the student engagement in the class. And we can also start the class with something like a primer, a prerequisite knowledge or recall, a brief overview, or giving a summary, or ask challenging questions. Madam, how much more time I have?
10 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you, madam. Thank you. So when we talk about why we study symmetry, so this is one class I start how with a primer. So to understand or explain blah, 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 we talk about this, and this is a primer. So before I talk about symmetry or why we have to study symmetry, so we are just telling to the students a primer that, okay, if you know symmetry, then you can explain all these things like that. We tell them beforehand in the beginning of the class. This is one approach. Another approach is recall. So here I am teaching about the carbocations. So we just recollect, okay, what are all the different carbocations we have seen so far, or maybe you have studied so far like that. We just do a recall in the class. Or we can also do a brief overview of what is already known. So in this particular lecture, before reaction dynamics and reaction intermediate, I talk about what Derek Burton had said, what Hammond and Eyring had said about transition state, because this is basically how the reaction proceeds and how the reaction intermediates are involved. So in the transition state, structural activity relationship was given by Hammond, whereas temperature and the rate constants relativity was given by Eyring. And the Cutting-Hammond principle talks about conformation and the reactivity of any system. So these are all the various ways we have actually seen like that. We start our class. This is one way. Another way is giving a summary, like why we are going to study about reaction mechanism to explain the product formation or blah, blah, and how we study that and what to study. So this is a giving brief summary that in this particular lecture, we are going to see all these things we can talk about. And some important question also we can pose to the students like, okay, Hammett equation, if you are going to talk about. So what was Hammett's observation about the general reactivity? Then what he did and how he did, and what is linear free energy relationship, and why we have to study about linear free energy relationship. So these are all some of the questions we start in the beginning of the class, so that the students will be trained or tuned that these are all the things we are going to see today. So let me get involved in that. And there are other cases. What we can do is we can create a regular class activities, like follow a well-defined structure, plan some group or individual activities, because many of these things has to be done or thought beforehand we go to the class, because within the class it's very difficult to think and do. So planning is very, very essential to increase the student engagement. And when we give some activities to the student, we have to be very clear in giving the instruction to the students, and we also have to set the expectation. This is very, very essential. Otherwise, students will just like that, write something and give it. Say, for example, we want a 2-page write-up, and if you don't tell that, then obviously, they are going to write in 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs. So we have to set the standards or expectations very clearly. And if some student has some difficulty, we have to support them. And we have to make it a routine. That means on a regular basis, every month we will have 2 activities like this. Like that, we can actually set that. So these are some of the ways by which we can actually keep the students engaged in our class. And another thing is move from what to what else, because what is we generally teach to the class. But from that, we have to go to what else I can teach, rather than simply focus on what to teach. What is basically based on the topics, whatever the topics I am going to teach, or maybe it is the most common scenario. We use very standard examples, and this is very relevant to the syllabus, and this requires normal understanding. And this is a single disciplinary approach. This is what we generally do. But if we move from what to what else, the engagement actually increases multifold. In the what else, what we have to do, the teacher has to do a little bit more work, and we have to do a comparison rather than simply talking about one thing. And we give additional examples. This may be more than the syllabus. And of course, this requires a deeper understanding. And also it is a multidisciplinary approach. Here is an example. Cyanohydrin formation, we all teach in our PG level course. So there we talk about what is a cyanohydrin. We talk about cyanide ions are involved, and it is basically 1:1 equivalent of carbonyl and the cyanide are involved in that. So in this particular case, cyanide ion is a nucleophile. So this is what we generally talk about, cyanohydrin. But if you want to move from what to what else, we are going to talk about benzoin condensation. So what is the relationship between cyanohydrin condensation and cyanohydrin reaction and benzoin condensation? So we do a small comparison, and we go to the next level of giving the reaction mechanism. So this is one additional thing. Like, of course, in many syllabus it is covered. So we can actually say like this may be part of what. The what part is only from the cyanohydrin formation. The what else part is from the benzoin condensation. Then we talk about the mechanism. What is the acyl anion equivalent? When we are talking about, we can also show the students. So this is the acyl anion equivalent we are talking about. And finally, the major change what we are going to bring in is the additional information. So these 3 pictures, the millipede or the centipede pictures are given here. So what is this to do with the benzoin condensation or the cyanohydrin reaction? So as yesterday's we have talked about the systems thinking approach. So that is what one of the things, like from chemistry, we are going to biology area. So how this particular reaction, the cyanohydrin reaction, is too crucial for this particular centipede's defense mechanism. So here, this is the mandolonitrile. When we talk about this is aromatic ring is a benzene ring. So this is a mandolonitrile. So this mandolonitrile is being produced by this centipede, and it is stored inside the body. And in the cyanohydrin formation, we talk about the forward reaction only. So an aldehyde reacts with the cyanide to give this particular product, but this product is stored in the centipede, and an enzyme, lyase enzyme, breaks this to liberate the cyanide ion to produce the benzaldehyde unit. So this cyanide, whatever is produced, is sprayed on the whatever is the predator which is coming to eat this particular centipede, or whenever the centipede feels threatened, it will immediately spray this material, that is the cyanide is sprayed on whatever is the thing which is attacking the centipede. So that particular moment, whatever is attacking gets unconscious, or even the cyanide poison is so hot, I mean, so much that even 12 to 15 pigeons can be killed by the amount of cyanide that is released by this centipede. So that's the reason even a human gets bite from the centipede, they feel so dangerous. That is because the release of cyanide from this reverse reaction of cyanohydrin. So this is what is called the systems thinking. So this is what else I can actually give to my students. And some of the students' activities that can be planned, all of you know. So I'll just briefly skip through that. And what is the role of the teacher? I'll just quickly go. We have to build a trust or show empathy to the students. We can teach them the process of finding the answers, but not provide the direct answers. Because if we give the answers, the student become lazy. So rather than that, we have to just tell them that you go find the answers, whatever difficulty you have, you come back. So that is how we can actually make that a little bit more engagement between the content and the students. Of course, we can provide some breathing time during the class, and also we can support the slow achievers with the remedial class or tutorial session. We can also encourage peer learning. Okay, finally, let us come to this break question. What if nothing works? So this is the question we all will have, because by the end of the day, I tried so many things, but it didn't work. But don't worry about that. We have to keep on doing that till the effective change happens. Actually, we have to reiterate, make it a strong point every time that this is what I expect, or no compromise on the standards. So this is again another major thing. So the student now feels like, okay, with the compromise, I cannot get along with him. So I have to actually perform it. So we are actually indirectly forcing him. And the punishment, obviously, it is not a physical punishment, but indirectly, we have to give them some sort of thing like maybe you cut 1 or 2 marks if they did not submit, or there is some problem in submitting, delay in submitting, or plagiarism, or so many things are there. So you can actually do a punishment also to the students. And if some real problem is there, you can personally interact if possible. And of course, you can encourage positive reinforcement by rewards, appreciation, and other things, and try to enforce discipline. So with that, we will conclude our things like what are the solutions, probable solutions I had given here. Ability to communicate or collaborate, we can increase with the peer learning. And if the student doesn't have lack of this self-discipline or interest, we can give some motivation to the students. And to overcome the barriers, we can actually go through a bilingual approach or a peers approach. And when they have fear or failure, we just show empathy or moral support. And whatever negative experience they have, we have to clear the misconceptions. And when they are not willing to work hard or put efforts, we have to show some good examples. And for the extrinsic things, there are lots of solutions given here. So I will be sharing this presentation so you can actually go through that. And finally, our contribution to student engagement so far, what we have been doing is like we conduct a regularly open book examination to increase the student engagement with our teaching learning process. And we also conduct a mid-semester evaluation within same paper. And of course, we are running a successful master open online course. And we use Telegram for discussion during the classes. So thank you very much. And I conclude. I think I'm sorry I took 10 minutes extra. Very sorry for that.
No problem, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for this valuable information, for telling us actually what is learning. And as a teacher, we have to avoid misconceptions and ignorance so that the teaching will be impressive for the student. Thank you so much. So if anybody have any question to ask, they may ask the question.
Sir, only one query.
Yeah, yes.
Sir, is it possible to upload our that is the videos or that is e-content on the MOOC? Is there any procedure?
Yeah, actually, we have to apply. There is a standard process that is being followed. So now for universities, non-technical courses, Consortium of Educational Communication, CEC is the national coordinator. So
Yes.
they will call for the paper, MOOC development. And once they make this announcement or the advertisement, we can apply against any of the call. expression of interest is the call they generally tell that. So you can create a 5 minutes video and you can upload it to their website, or you can also upload it to YouTube and share the link with those people. And they will have a committee which will go through that evaluation. And once if they agree that this course is okay and the teacher can be asked to develop, then they will ask you to develop the course. So this process generally takes 6 to 8 months.
Okay, they are spending somewhat for this content.
Sir?
They will provide some funding also for that.
Yeah, actually 13.5 lakhs is the funding they can generally provide. So out of the 13.5 lakhs, 9 lakhs is for the development of the e-content. That means video, teaching, learning materials. And the teacher who is making that is called the course coordinator, he will get around 5,000 for 30 minutes of lectures. So 40 lectures if you are creating, then it's basically a 4-credit course. So he will get 2 lakhs for that amount. And there will be 2 academic experts who will review your course for the accuracy of academic contents. So they will also get 40,000, like 80,000. And there is a technical reviewer who will get 20,000. So, and for developing teaching learning e-contents, that means the e-book for student to study, you will be given something like 1.5 lakhs. So 4.5 lakhs for the teaching learning material development, and 9 lakhs for the video development, which will be given to the video creator. Like, I mean, EMRCs are there. So the EMRCs are generally now collaborated to create the course. So the 9 lakhs funding will be given to EMRC.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, madam.
Now it's a time to move towards our next session by Dr. Murugan, former HOD, ST Hindu College, Nagarkovil. And it's my great privilege to introduce our today's second speaker, Dr. S. Murugan. Sir is MPhil and doctorate of acupuncture from the Open International University for Complementary Medicine, Sri Lanka. He has 37 years of college teaching experience at VO Chidambaram College and ST Hindu College, Nagarkovil. He retired as HOD of chemistry from ST Hindu College in the year 2011. From 2006 onward, he is trying to popularize the microscale technique among the college and university teachers, and given demonstration on microscale experiment in 168 educational institute, including 16 universities in the state of Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Punjab, and Tamil Nadu. He gave the microscale demonstration at Indian Science Congress 2015, held at Mumbai from 3rd to 7th January. He conducted more than 3 webinars and he has written 4 books. He has published procedure for the microscale analytical techniques in the Journal of Applicable Chemistry, and also given a radio talk on in the year 2009. His microscale demonstration video can be seen in YouTube under the title Microscale Chemistry Author Wiki. His blog on the type of treatment given is put up in Google under the title Panchabhuta. So I invite and I request Dr. Murugan sir to guide us. Now it's over to you, sir.
जो बाहर చాలా smooth.
So your slide is visible, but you're not audible.
Now am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, madam. Thank you very much for your nice introduction. And I feel extremely happy to follow one of my students. And I feel very happy that he is doing a commendable job. That is evident from the accolades he is getting from all around. And I really feel very happy to follow him in the same platform. Now, I'll go with my topic, namely the green approach to chemistry practicals. Now, the first principle of green chemistry says that reduce the wastage at the source itself. Now, what is the source for us? The source for us is the lab. So, if you are able to reduce the usage of chemicals and reagents to a minimum in our practical classes without compromising on the quality of the experiments, then it becomes green approach to chemistry practicals. Now, here comes the help of the microscale experiments in chemistry. Now, what is microscale experiments in chemistry? Generally, students use just bigger test tubes, bigger spatula, and consequently, they are to use a Bunsen burner. But alternately, in microscale chemistry, we are using such a small semi-micro test tube, small size steel spatula, and then consequently, we are using cigarette lighters only. Now, what is the advantage of this cigarette lighter? As soon as the heating is over, we stop the heating. That is, we are not contributing to the global warming. But unlike the Bunsen burner, which will be going till the end of the practicals, here we are putting off the flame as soon as the heating is over. Another thing about the microscale experiments is we can do the practicals without any difficulty. That is, most of the reactions we will be performing on a porcelain tile only, and with very small quantities of chemicals and reagents. Now, you may be able to appreciate why or how we are able to do the most of the organic reactions on a porcelain tile itself. Suppose if you look at this slide, say, let us say we have 1000 ml of 1m solution, it will contain Avogadro number of molecules, that is 6 into 10 to the power 23 molecules. So based on that, if you do the calculation, then a drop of that solution will contain at least 3 into 10 to the power 19 molecules. So if it is a solid of molecular weight 200, then it may contain 3 into 10 to the power 18 molecules. That is why the microscale chemistry is a workable model, and we can easily do that on a porcelain tile. So whatever we do on macro scale can actually be done on micro scale. Now the non-heating experiments and the non-heating part of the heating experiments, we do it on a porcelain tile. That is, we do it just with a drop of the liquid substance, and if it is a solid, we do it with just 5 milligram of the substance plus 1 drop of the reagent. Now, I'm going to just talk about 3 main reactions which the students find it difficult to perform on macro scale. One is the element test or the lessons test. For this purpose, we fuse 2 small pieces of metal sodium in a semi-micro test tube, and then we fuse 5 milligram quantity of the substance. After bringing the temperature to room temperature, we add just 4 drops of water and we get the sodium fusion extract. Unlike the conventional method, where the students used to break 2 fusion tubes, put it into a china dish containing about 10 to 15 ml of water and boil that for about 15 minutes to concentrate that 1 ml or 2 ml. Then they filter and collect the sodium fusion extract to perform the element test. Now, having prepared the sodium fusion extract, now the heating part of this experiment is over. The non-heating part we are going to play on the porcelain tile. How? Let us see. Now, this is one of the photographs taken in one of our workshops at Kottayam. The student is trying to perform the element test using a cigarette lighter and the semi-micro test tube. The use of cigarette lighter for heating purpose is actually, the idea came from Dr. P.R. John of Government Victoria College, Palakkad, Kerala. See, we are just taking a drop of the extract on a porcelain tile. To that, we add a drop of saturated ferrous sulfate solution and then a drop of 50% sulfuric acid solution so that we get the Prussian blue color solution for the element nitrogen. Now, in the photograph, you are seeing droplets being used for adding the reagents. Instead, we can use the homeo medicine bottles to store and to take the reagents. And one advantage with this micro scale experiments is none of these reagents need to be prepared afresh. That is, we can safely keep this reagent in the homeo medicine bottles for months together. Only when the reagents get discolored, we need to change that. Until then, we can use these reagents stored in the homeo medicine bottle itself. Now, another advantage of using this homeo medicine bottle over the dropper is we can take the drop of the reagent without contamination because we are keeping that in a closed container. Whereas in the case of a dropper, though we may use labeled droplets, there is every chance that droplets may get mixed up. Once the reagents get mixed up means it is a waste. So our idea is to avoid wastage in any form. So it is better that the reagents are stored and used from homeo medicine bottles. Next, we can look at the test for carboxylic acid. I told you that the non-heating experiments we are performing on a porcelain tile itself with a few milligram quantity of the solid substance and a drop of the reagent. Now we can see in the conventional method, the students normally use these bigger test tubes and they take about 1 ml or 2 ml of the bicarbonate reagent and then use this bigger spatula to add the substance. Then they look for the brisk effervescence for the carboxylic acid. So now instead of using these bigger test tubes and large quantities of the reagent, what I am going to use is I am going to use this semi-micro steel spatula to take just a peck of the carboxylic acid. And you can see that I have taken more than what is supposed to be taken, because for the visibility in the camera, I have taken more substance, but actually when the students perform this test, they can take just half or 1/3 of this amount of substance. Now, I have kept 2 small amounts of the carboxylic acid just for comparison. Now to this, I am going to add just a drop of the saturated sodium bicarbonate solution stored in the homeo medicine bottle. Now you can watch the effervescence. See, you are able to see a buffy mass by the reaction of the sodium bicarbonate with the carboxylic acid. On its side, I have kept some unreacted acid so that you can see the obvious change that has taken place after the addition of sodium bicarbonate reagent. So, whatever the reactions we perform with 1 ml, 2 ml, we are able to do just with a drop. 1 ml means 20 drops. That means even in a single test, you are able to save 19 drops of the reagent. At the same time, you are able to see the result in a better way compared to the conventional method. That is the advantage of going to the micro scale techniques of analysis. As I told you, we can use these homeomedicine bottles or the droplets, but as I said, we would advise better to use the homeomedicine bottles rather than the droplets for avoiding the mixing of droplets. Now we can see the test for dicarboxylic acid. This again, we do it with just 5 milligram quantity of the substance and then 5 milligram of resorcinol and a drop of concentrated sulfuric acid. We gently warm the semi-micro test tube and we take a peck of the reaction mixture on the tip of a glass rod and introduce that into the 2 ml of dilute sodium hydroxide taken in a semi-micro test tube. You observe green fluorescence as you see in this photograph. Now, what is the change or what is the difference between the conventional method? In the conventional method, students normally take about 50 milligram or 100 milligram of the substance, then an equal amount of resorcinol, and then take about 1 ml of concentrated sulfuric acid for heating purpose. And they pour the entire lot into a beaker containing about 100 ml of dilute sodium hydroxide. So whatever the test the students perform with 100 ml of dilute sodium hydroxide, we are able to perform with just 2 ml of sodium hydroxide. So you can imagine the level of savings we can do by this simple test, because it is another test which the students find it often difficult to perform in the class. Now we can consider some student activities with regard to this test. That is, the students may be given different carboxylic acid, 5 milligram quantities, and perform the fluorescence test. They may be given oxalic acid, malonic, butyric, adipic, and phthalic, isophthalic, and terephthalic acids. Now, these are the observations the students generally get. All the acids do not give green fluorescence, and the intensity of the green fluorescence varies. Now, the students may be asked to give the answer for this observation. Or alternately, please unmute yourselves. Please mute yourselves so that I can talk. So all acids do not give green fluorescence. The reason is only 1,4 dicarboxylic acids on heating with the resorcinol will give the green fluorescence. So all the acids are not 1,4 dicarboxylic acid, that is evident. Another thing is the phthalic acid is a aromatic dicarboxylic acid, whereas succinic acid is an aliphatic dicarboxylic acid. And you know well, the intensity of the green fluorescence will increase by the extent of conjugation present in the aromatic nucleus. So these are the two inferences the students can make it by performing this test. So these type of small activities can be planned for the students out of the regular activities or the regular analysis for the students. Now another reaction which the students often find it difficult to perform in the classroom is the test for aromatic primary amine. Normally, the students perform the aromatic primary amine test by taking about 1 ml of the amine in a test tube, and then they add about 1 ml of dilute HCl. Then they prepare saturated sodium nitrite solution afresh, and then they prepare alkaline beta naphthol also afresh. So they keep all these 4 solutions into a trough or a beaker containing ice cold water, and then they finally mix them to get the red SO dye. Now you see how I am going to perform the very same test on a porcelain tile without any external cooling. So I have placed just a drop of the amine, the aromatic primary amine on the tile. Now I am going to add a drop of the dilute HCl. Now by this I have prepared the amine hydrochloride. Now to this I am going to add a drop of a saturated solution of sodium nitrate. As I told you, these reagents can be prepared and they can be kept even for months together if we keep them in closed containers. So they need not be prepared afresh. So now I am adding a drop of that. Now the amine is diacetized as it is evident from the yellow color. Now to this I am going to add a drop of alkaline beta naphthol. Now you see we get a beautiful red SO dye. Now why I have to cool in the conventional method all these solutions? Why or how I am able to get the same taste without any external cooling? Now what is the science behind this? Now if you look at this test tube, it is a closed reaction vessel. We are using strong acid, namely hydrochloric acid, and we are using strong base, namely sodium hydroxide. So it is actually a neutralization reaction between strong acid and strong base. As you are aware, lot of heat will be liberated by this heat of neutralization. If you have not cooled properly, then this heat of neutralization will char the red SO dye. So the color of the dye will become charred. So to avoid that only, we have to cool them in ice cold water. But when I do the same thing on a porcelain tile, because I am taking just a drop of the reagents only, the amount of heat liberated will be very, very small. And that is immediately taken care of by the environment and the system readily gets cooled. So there is no need for the external cooling when I do the same thing in a porcelain tile. So when we do the micro scale experiments or when we do the practical classes on micro scale, sometimes the results are even better than the conventional method. That is the advantage of going to the micro scale techniques of analysis. Now you can see this photograph. I have performed 8 reactions in this tile. Still, I have not washed the tile. Now compare this with what we normally do in the conventional classroom. After performing each test, we'll be washing the test tube number of times. Thereby, we'll be using lot of water and wasting lot of time too. And you can see that there is lot of space still left on the tile. Now I can perform many more reactions and finally only I am going to wash the tile. So just by looking at the photograph, you can imagine the level of savings we do on the amount of chemicals we spent on performing this test, the reagents we have spent on that, the amount of water we can save on doing this on a tile, and again, the amount of water we can save by doing this on a tile. When we save water, we are actually saving a lot of electricity too, because we have to pump water to the overhead tank, which needs electricity. And by performing the reactions mostly on a tile, we save a lot of LPG, the scarce material. So it is all around savings when we perform the chemistry practicals on micro scale. Another thing about this is when we wash these things, all this waste goes to the ground to pollute the groundwater sources only. Because the amount of chemicals and reagents discharged into the environment is very, very meager. The percentage of pollution caused by the microscale techniques of analysis is far less than the conventional method. So it is high time that we adopt the microscale techniques of analysis for our chemistry practicals, thereby make our labs and the practicals green. Now, this is with regard to the organic practicals. Now, for the inorganic practicals, what we do is we do the same thing again using semi-micro test tubes, and we use just 3 to 5 milligram of the salt only. So, by reducing the size of the apparatus, namely the test tube, the students are compelled to take only small quantities of salts. Again, for heating experiments, we use 3 drops of the reagents only. Even if it is more than 1 reagent, say as in the case of the ethyl borate test, we use only 2 drops of alcohol and 1 drop of sulfuric acid, total 3 drops to perform the ethyl borate test. And we will be able to get the green edged flame test for the borate. This is how we generally make the dry test for the acid radical analysis in inorganic qualitative analysis. That is, we make use of just 5 milligram of the salt and 3 drops of the various acids only. Now, in the basic radical analysis, unlike in the conventional method, we adopt the base catalyzed elimination of interfering radicals like borate, fluoride, etc. That is, we are totally avoiding the acid catalyzed elimination of the interfering radicals. How do we do that? We take the sodium carbonate extract, we prepare that. The residue left behind in the sodium carbonate extract preparation is actually the metal carbonates of the metal cations of the salts only. So what we do is, this residue, we treat it with hot water twice and dissolve that in dilute acid to get the original solution. Thereafter, the original solution is used to perform the basic radical analysis. Now, even in a single group, there are more than 1 basic radicals present. So it is better that we adopt the semi-micro qualitative analysis for basic radical analysis and not the microscale analysis. That is the only difference between the organic qualitative analysis and the inorganic qualitative analysis. Now, we recommend the 5% aqueous solution of sodium sulfide in place of hydrogen sulfide for group 2 and group 4 cations. That is, this reagent has to be prepared afresh on a daily basis because the reagent, namely sodium sulfide, is a salt of strong base and weak acid. So if we keep the solution overnight, it may become alkaline. So when you use this in the second group, sometimes the 4th group cations may also get precipitated in the second group itself. So to avoid this only, we recommend the use of the aqueous solution of sodium sulfide prepared on a daily basis. Now, not only the organic qualitative analysis and inorganic qualitative analysis can be done on microscale, the physical chemistry experiments can as well be done on microscale. For lack of time, I am giving just only 1 example here. Here, Dr. Jaya Rajendran, one of our resource persons, she is from Laila College, Chennai. She is actually demonstrating the activation energy experiment for the pyridisulfide iodide reaction in a test tube itself. That is, she is taking just 6 ml of all the 4 solutions put together. Unlike the conventional method where we use 30 to 40 ml of the peridisulfide, iodide, starch, and then sulfate solutions. Here, this travel mug itself acts as a improvised thermostat. We need not have a regular thermostat to perform the activation energy experiment. So this is the simplicity of the microscale techniques of analysis. So as I told you, for want of time, I am giving just a simple experiment only, that to show that the microscale experiments can as well be done on microscale for the physical chemistry experiments as well. Now, for volumetric analysis, to save on chemicals, we recommend the use of 2-bureau titration method, and thereby we can save a lot of chemicals. And again, as I told you, for want of time, I am not giving the details here. And if anybody is interested, if you mail me, we are ready to provide you with all the necessary details regarding the 2-bureau titration method. One piece of information that for the past 16 or 17 years or so, the Pune University is adopting this 2-bureau technique, 2-bureau titration method only for the volumetric analysis. And then the binary organic mixtures can be separated with minimal or no ether at all. Again, we'll be happy to share this procedure if anybody requires it and if you mail us. So now not only the qualitative analysis and the quantitative analysis that can be performed on microscale, we can actually do the green approach to the preparations as well. That is, the organic as well as inorganic preparations can be done in such a way that the final product is just about 0.5 gram to 1 gram only, so that we can minimize the use of chemicals and reagents, thereby making the preparations in a green way. Now, when we want to prepare them in small quantities, then we need small size apparatus. So now look at this photograph. I have a 10 ml RB flask. Because I have a 10 ml RB flask, I cannot take more than 5 ml of liquid substance. So even if I wish, I cannot take more quantity of the liquid substance here. So by reducing the size of the apparatus, as I told you earlier, we are compelled to take small quantities of the substances. So this is one way of making our practicals green. And then look at this microscale water condenser. We fill this microscale water condenser with water and plug the inlet and outlet by a rubber tube. Now, when we place this water condenser with the RB flask, we can perform the preparation without any difficulty, and there is no water is running out of this microscale condenser. So whatever water is present in the microscale condenser, it is enough to complete the preparation. So that is the advantage of this. That is, no water is wasted actually by using this microscale condenser. On the side of it, you can see what you call a Kigman head. With the help of this, we can distill even 1 ml of a liquid substance. That is, we don't need any Levy condenser or any receiver adapter to collect the pure liquids. We can just place this over the RB flask and then make a vertical distillation. So whatever liquid, the pure liquid, it will get collected at the bottom of the Kigman head and we can collect it using a Pasteur pipette. Now what you see in the photograph is a Pasteur pipette. Now it is nothing but a long glass tube with one end with a rubber bulb. And the other end, if you attach a little cotton in the form of a thread, now we can filter using this without any filter paper. That is, in a solid liquid mixture, when you want to make the filtration process, just suck out the liquid using this Pasteur pipette with a cotton plug, so that the solid will remain in the container itself and the liquid alone will come inside the washer pipette. Because it is plugged with the cotton, no solid particle will come inside. So that is how we can make the filtration without filter paper. The very same washer pipette can be used to transfer liquids from one container to another container without any spillage, the wastage due to spillage. That is another advantage of this washer pipette. Yet another advantage of this washer pipette is we can use this washer pipette to separate two immiscible liquids. So it is high time that we use this type of simple apparatus so that we can do filtrations without filter paper. And whatever you see here is a filtration setup. And if you have more substance to filter, we can use this type of Hirsch funnel. And with a water suction, you see here, it is a submergible motor. It is a 19 watt and it costs about 700 rupees only. Now, the advantage of this submergible motor is if you attach this outlet to your conventional water condenser, and the outlet water can be allowed to fall into the trough. So whatever water is there in the trough, that is sufficient to carry out the preparation. So if you feel the water gets warm, you can add 1 or 2 ice bits so that the same water can be recycled. And this type of arrangement will be useful in places where there is water scarcity. So we can use this for filtration purpose, and at the same time, the same arrangement can be used for the preparations using long size water condensers. And finally, we want to acknowledge the help rendered by Professor Ronald McElvey of the Wisconsin University, where Dr. Kelkar learned the techniques of the microscale analysis. And Dr. S.L. Kelkar, the lead man in India, to the best of my knowledge, he is the man who has started popularizing these microscale techniques on a large scale. I am just one among the resource persons under his leadership, and I wish to thank all these following resource persons, namely Dr. Jaya Rajendran, Dr. Alex Ramani, and Dr. P.R. John, because I have used many of their ideas and slides very liberally in this presentation. So I am thankful to them for all their help rendered. And similarly, I would like to thank all the resource persons associated with the various workshops related to the microscale techniques of analysis. And I wish to thank all the participants for giving me a patient listening. And if you want to ask any questions, you are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for this informative session. If anybody have any question to ask, they may please ask the question.
So all these procedures are open source only. Anybody can access them readily. So we are ready to share them.
You have given a very nice presentation and very in simple way.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
So thank you very much, sir.
Okay,
I think there are no questions.
okay.
Now, I invite. Sir? Yes, sir. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
The link for the feedback form will be given in the chat box.
Yeah. Okay, go on. Yes, okay. Rashmi.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. Continue.
Okay. So now I invite Dr. W.B. Gurnule, sir, convener of the webinar, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Okay, thank you. But before going to give the vote of thanks, if any participant wants to give the feedback regarding the 2 days international webinar, You can unmute your microphone and give the feedback. Anyone?
So in the absence of any questions, I am thankful to the organizers, Dr. Kurnale and Dr. Swaminathan, for giving me an opportunity to share this platform with one of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, may I have one inquiry? Sir, जो ये these are the सही macro practice हैं. From where we, any name or address of the supplier, we want that. Actually, we want to purchase that, but we have no any address of the suppliers.
Yeah, I can give that, madam. I can give that.
Sir,
You can just mail me. I can give that.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
I will give you the mail. Okay.
You have taken my mail ID.
Okay, sir.
So email ID is here. Yeah.
Gunnule sir, I will take from you. You can take from that.
I will send you. No problem. Yeah, I will send you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
And if you need any of the procedures also, we are willing to share, madam. It is an open source
Okay,
only.
thank you, sir.
Yeah, you are welcome.
Okay, sir.
So
I will contact again with Mr. Gurunile sir, then I will ask.
Yes, okay. So any participant wants to give the feedback?
You need to have only initial investment. After that, it is everything is savings only.
Okay, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
I'm listening, sir.
Sir, today's program has remained very informative for us, especially for the lecturers of higher schools. But one thing I want to say that in future, such a program should be maybe conducted in offline mode, so that we may get a chance to interact with such dignitaries.
Yeah,
and
definitely,
personalities.
sir. Definitely, we are willing to come, sir.
This is our request, sir, and our address is with you. Whenever you will get a chance of arranging this offline program, and we may be informed, sir.
Oh, okay, ma'am, sir. Definitely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Is there any participant to give the feedback again?
Good evening, sir. This is Akshay Akre.
Okay.
I would like to thank for arranging such type of webinar, sir. Gunule sir, thank you, sir, for arranging such type of webinar. Many things I have got from this. As I am a new learning teacher in this world of chemistry, so it make me very proud to attend this seminar. And the new techniques, whatever I have learned today, that I will implement in my teaching and learning process. And the new green chemistry, what we have learned, that was very interesting topic. Thank you, sir, for arranging such type of good, interesting things for our students, which are learning and as well as teaching chemistry in 10+2 level. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
You are welcome, sir.
So at the end, as a convener, I'm giving the vote of thanks. As we know, international webinar on chemistry education under ACT Research Convention 2021, which is organized by Association of Chemistry Teachers, Mumbai, Department of Chemistry, Government Madhav Science PG College, Ujjain, and Department of Chemistry, Kamla Nehru Mahavidyaya, Nagpur, from 4th February to 5th February 2022. And at first, I would like to thank Honorable Dr. Suhasini Vanjari Madam, President of Amar Seva Mandal, Nagpur, and also Honorable Advocate Abhijit Vanjari Sir, MLC and Secretary of Amar Seva Mandal, Nagpur, and Honorable Dr. Smita Vanjari Madam, Treasurer of Amar Seva Mandal, Nagpur. They always have been a source of inspiration for us. I would like to thank respected Professor Brijesh Paresar, President of Amar Seva Mandal, President of Association of Chemistry Teacher, for kind support in organizing the international webinar. I also express my thanks to our chief guest, B.S. Balaji, Associate Professor of Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, who accepted our invitation and delivered a graceful speech on this occasion in the inauguration session. As a convener of this international webinar, I also thank to the Honorable Professor D.V. Prabhu, General Secretary of ACT, for kind support in organizing the webinar and accepting our invitation to preside over the inauguration function and delivered a graceful speech on this occasion. I also express my thanks to Professor Rakhi Gupta Madam, National Convener of ACT Research Convention, for cooperation in organization of this ACT Research Convention. I also express thanks to our Principal Dr. D.S. Badwaik sir and Principal Dr. Arpan Bhadwaj from Madhav Science PG College Ujjain, and also Professor P.B. Daika, Vice Principal of our college, for guiding us from time to time to make this webinar a grand success. I also express my thanks to Professor M. Swaminathan, co-convener of ACT Research Convention of International Webinar, for cooperation and wonderful organization. I also express my thanks to faculty members of Chemistry Department of Kamla Nehru Mahavidyaya and also faculty members of Government Madhav Science PG College Ujjain. I am personally and on behalf of organizing committee thankful to the resource persons, Professor Seamus Delani from Australia, Professor Uday Mehta from Indian Institute of Science Bangalore, Dr. B.S. Balaji from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, and Professor S. Murugan from the Saint Hindu College, Nagarkoil. I am also thankful to all the participants from various states of the India and from different 28 countries like Bangladesh, Indonesia, Nigeria, UAE, Malaysia, Egypt, Nepal, Mexico, Korea, Oman, South Korea, Canada, Philippines, Tanzania, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Morocco, Pakistan, Malaysia, and Ukraine, Hong Kong, Taiwan, all these other countries. And at last, all these staff members of the organizing institute also need to be thanked because they did not leave unturned to make this webinar a grand success. At last, I give thanks to all those who have helped us directly or indirectly to make the international webinar a grand success. So thank you, all of you. And before this, I request all the participants which are on the Zoom, turn on your video so that we can take the group photograph. Thank you. Murugan sir, kindly unshare your screen, sir.
Okay, madam. I am sharing.
Stop sharing, sir. Yeah.
Stop sharing. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, madam.
Yes. Turn on your camera so
Yeah,
that we can take.
My camera is on only.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Other participant can also turn on your camera so that we can take the group photograph, which will be sent to the group. The remaining participant can also turn on your camera, video camera. Okay, thank you. Feedback link will be given soon on the box, chat box. Okay. All the participants are requested to fill the feedback form. After submission, you will get the certificate. So thank you, Professor Balaji, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for a nice organization. Thank you so much.
Very nice. You have given a very nice presentation and very good information, sir, to all.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And
Thank
also,
you.
sir, Namaskar, Rajesh Pandit, sir, from Nepal, Kathmandu, Dr. Sharma, sir.
Namaste, sir. Very nice program indeed. Thank you very much, sir, for inviting us.
Kulgan, sir, thank you.
Yeah.
Very
Thank
good
you, sir.
information you have given on green approach.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to present in this platform.
No, sir, you have given very nice information because
Okay,
micro
thank you.
scale techniques now required. There is a need.